A different point of view when it comes to the state police report and the city of Cranston. Welcome into My State of Mind. I am Dan York. It's great to have you aboard on this Friday evening. Tonight's program on Fox Providence. We have kind of a funky thing that developed in getting this show together. Many Friday nights, I record a longer conversation and skip my daily review of the news and rundown. And what happened is that the program that you're about to see was designed to actually be a pre-recorded part of a program for last night. But because the conversation with the guest, Justin Katz from the Ocean State Current, got so lengthy and detailed and interesting, in the middle of the conversation and the segment, that's the word I was trying to find, we decided to make it the entire Friday broadcast. Does that make any sense to you? So in about 40 seconds, my shirt will change because it was a previously recorded show. You'll hear Justin Katz talk about his very different perspective on the state police report and how it impacts the city of Cranston and the political future, perhaps, of Mayor Alan Fung. More about how you view the state police report and whether the state police report was done in a legitimate way. So enjoy the rest of the broadcast. I think you'll find it interesting. State police tell stories of heroes and villains in Cranston, and Justin has a different perspective. Or maybe I don't know, is it? Welcome, by the way. Well, good to see you again. Let me not put words in your mouth. What is your perspective on the state police report on Alan Fung and the Cranston Police Department for that period of time that they assessed?
Well, my point of view is that it's extremely political, not necessarily in a partisan sense, but in a sense of telling a narrative that gets you a political end. And I think that can be useful, and they might be on the side of good for the particulars of this case. But it's, as a public and as readers, we have to be careful and take it for what it is and not react to it as if it were some hard, cold list of facts that we could judge for ourselves. So you run a risk, for example, of making bad political mistakes. To jump right into it, one of the big problems I correctly identify is that there was too much alignment between, say, the union, the police chief, and the mayor. But if you jump in and now overwhelm Alan Fung and knock him out of office, and suddenly the union is donating most of its money to Lanny, the city council president. If now you suddenly line up with the union, the captain, the city council, and a new mayor, you're in a worse position. So that's one perspective I have, is that you have to be careful and take these things as they should be taken, which is political documentation. And similarly,
I hear you, but I'm thinking that that's the way it goes. Well, define for me the nature of the state police report. Do you find it problematic?
Well, I find it problematic depending how you take it. I mean, I encourage your viewers to read it, because I don't remember the last time I was up so late at night reading something. It was just riveting. It's good literature in that sense. There's
an oh my God factor as you keep reading. Don't you agree?
Well, to some extent, but I had been just busy over the summer and trying to block this issue out until on the Ocean State Current I published somebody who had a very rah-rah kind of Republican view, like this is just them going after a Republican. So I figured, having published that, I should read the report. So, but a lot of what I'm seeing in the coverage and the opinions that are being expressed about the report, when I read it, I actually probably had the inverse, opposite reaction. Wow, this is incredibly biased. This isn't just some, the state police coming in, professionally laying out an itemized list of complaints and things you can do to resolve issues. This is the state police coming in, essentially, taking over the Cranston police, putting in their own guy, and then lining up Alan Fung so that he'll be powerless, with no political power over the new chief, Michael Winquist. So that is the ultimate effect of this.
I'm just digesting what you said. Mayor Fung beats his breast over the idea that he called the state police in. Mayor Fung had such a dysfunctional police department that he needed an interim state police colonel, and then made his own decision to hire a state police major to be the new permanent chief. The state police didn't say, you're going to hire our guys.
That's accurate. I mean, as a political advisor, I might have suggested to Mayor Fung, you know, don't bring in the same people to run it as you're bringing in to investigate the whole thing. But however that decision came about, I mean, we are where we are. Nobody's blameless in this. I mean,
well, you talk about the bias in the report. Now, the problem is that most people haven't read it. So, you know, we end up having an inside baseball conversation, and define the bias for me.
Well,
I mean, nothing is pure. We can get into this really deep at the bar, 16 beers in conversation about bias. I mean, you're a terrific writer. You know, I've long taunted my journalistic friends by telling them that even though journalism is objective, there's always a human condition and a perspective for writing an objective story. So there's always a built-in bias. But why did you feel biased throughout the report?
Well, a lot of it is kind of slaps you right up front. For example, they identify correctly, it appears, this problem with a Team A and Team B that Steve Frias has written in the Providence Journal goes back at least 60 years. So you've got this dynamic where there are two factions battling it out. And that's correctly stated up front.
I think Steve Frias' article about at least 60 years, and by the way, he's a Fung supporter, diehard, you know, keep the Republican Party alive somehow type. You know, we got Colonel McGrath in here last week. Says, yeah, you know, we had problems, but there's a nature to a police department, and that is the administration feels one way, the union feels another, and those who are on either sides can be defined as A and B. There's a whole dramatically more identifiable A and B problem the state police point out in this particular assessment.
Right. No, but the problem is that
there are very few organizations that don't have an A and B.
Right. No, but the problem is that's identified as a critical problem in the police department, and that's, I think, probably what led them to spin out of control. But that's a very small portion of the report itself. There's never, well, for the bias, for analysis versus narrative, which is the way I cut it in storytelling, there are no objective. You never have a timeline. Here's how things happen. You never have, here are the players, here's who's Team A. I mean, you don't have to necessarily label it like this for public consumption, but here's Team A, here's Team B. You know there's a team, which is, you know, the Colonel, Marco Palumbo, Stephen Antonucci, the head of the union, and probably involving Mayor Fung. But you never really get a sense of who the Team B is or what they might be doing that would be, and every time, and Captain Todd Padalano was most likely a critical figure in Team B, if that's how the letters worked out. But you never get a sense that any time he comes up, there's an excuse, or there's, well, he was one of the last of the McGrathites, so he had to start recording everything that everybody said to him, you know, or, do you see what I'm saying? Or there's overt statements like, Captain Padalano has an unblemished career. I mean, those kind of lead-ins that show you, and you know, come to find out that.
But an unblemished career, if there's no blemish, it's a fact.
Right, but the point is, yeah, it's a fact. But the point is that those are all on one side of that. They're all pointed toward the Team B. It seemed to me. I mean, that's
okay. This is This is really interesting. We'll take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the predisposition the state police have before they write the report. I think that's what we're getting to. Stay with us. All right, so Justin Katz is with me, and Justin is always a challenge for me because he operates at a very high level, and I'm trying to, you're all at a loss if you haven't read the state police report on the Cranston PD, but you can still get a general sense of my query and Justin's thesis here, that the state police report, well, let me not put words in your mouth. Your advice to the citizens of Cranston and Rhode Island and beyond about the state police report over the Cranston PD is what? Your advice is what?
Read the report and take it as factual if something stated as a fact, but something with a perspective, and move forward understanding that these are the problems and these are the players that state police have come in. And I guess overall, I would say put your shoes in the position, and put your feet in the shoes of everybody in the report, including the mayor, and don't overreact. Don't suddenly align
Look,
everybody.
I've called for Fung's resignation.
Mhm.
I was nauseous over this report. You find me problematic?
Do I find you a problem?
No. Do you find my position problematic? I won't take it personally.
No,
I like a good
I
debate.
mean, I expect with any of these things, you expect that people reacting to something will all have different perspectives.
Did you find Alan Fung to be a? How did you find Alan Fung after reading this report?
I found him to be sort of like I thought he was before. You know, not sort of a somewhat hapless as a leader, an okay manager who's better probably than other options we have in Rhode Island. Certainly better than people who are trying to push the state in the wrong direction. I think he was. Look, the Cranston police had a major issue here, and even the state police report, even if you doubt Steve Frias, says this is as long as anybody can remember.
Nobody knows who Steve Frias is, except his friends and family.
Right, but
Steve Frias is a Republican player, writes op-ed pieces, and is an ally of Mayor Fung. What else should we say about Steve Frias?
No, I'm just saying that even if you don't take his op-ed history report at face value, the state police report itself also says we've had these teams as long as anybody can remember.
Right.
So that is a central issue. It's
but
a
they
major
focus
problem.
on some hyperbole over the A and B. So it was a hyperbolized situation. The A and B dynamic was hyperbolized with this union administration collaborative, so to speak, my words, and anybody who wasn't on it or who was a member of the last administration's team was getting pummeled by Colonel Palumbo.
Right. Well, to that I would say, I mean, look at the parallels here. I mean, that's another thing that struck me. So you've got McGrath, Stephen McGrath, voted no confidence by the union. He boots all but a couple of, Marco Palumbo comes in, boots all but a couple of the McGrathites, who were then under fire. Look at what we have now. We have those McGrathites higher up with the state police, aligned with them. You've got a no confidence vote of the city council now. I mean, the parallels are amazing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a resident of Cranston. Don't spend any time in our police station yet. Hopefully, ever. But
somewhere along the line, you have to find an intrinsic, good faith place in terms of who's doing the right by the taxpayers in the city. And while nobody is pure in that, in any governmental agency, it is clear that Mayor Fung, clear to me before the report, I banged him on this many times, clear to me that Mayor Fung made a deal with Stephen Antonucci, the captain of the police department, who's also the head of the union, which is problematic, don't you agree? Okay. For support, earned money, negotiated a contract. There's no with a guy he should never have been negotiating with. There's no doubt that Antonucci had a number on McGrath, and Palumbo was the guy that they designated to take over. That is inferred in the report, and anybody who's paying attention knows that's a political truth. Mayor Fung made a deal to get support to get elected. He made a deal with the police union. The police union took advantage of that opportunity and their equity. Threw a no confidence vote on McGrath based on disagreements about how this place was supposed to be run. McGrath wanted to see it in a different way. The union wanted to see some things that he describes, that McGrath describes, as plum jobs in there. And it turned into a doggone mess. Then when Captain Antonucci acted out and ticket blitzed those districts when the contract that he negotiated with Fung didn't get supported, he drew attention to that whole dynamic. Do you agree with all that?
Yeah.
What was the state police supposed to write about that? They wrote what happened.
Right, but
what were they supposed to do?
No,
not write about what happened?
No. The point is, the way they wrote about it, suggesting, shows that they're not. What I kind of expected to read, one of the big surprises I had, I kind of expected to read this sort of dry analytical document where you're going in here.
Instead, you got a novel.
Yeah, instead it's a narrative with a storyline that serves the interests of the players. I mean, you've got the people who wrote it, Captain Kevin Barry and Lieutenant Matthew Moynihan, obviously have an interest in how they appear because they were running the show for 10 months, right? Their superior, Stephen O'Donnell, works for the governor, so he's got an interest in this.
Are you suggesting Stephen O'Donnell, shaved the report in order to inure some benefit for the governor?
No, I'm not.
He'd come in here, guns blazing, figuratively.
No, I'm not going to suggest that that's an overt, deliberate thing. But you have any writer, as you already noted, has biases, and when you're writing, especially something that purports to be analysis,
they were in a pigsty. They came into a pigsty. They were horrified by what they were seeing, and their writing no doubt reflects it. But they were asked to do so by the mayor.
Yeah.
So be careful what you ask for. Yes?
Yes, I'm just saying, but if anybody had requested from an agency an analysis of what went wrong, how you can fix it, that sort of thing, I think it would have read a lot differently, or should have read a lot differently. For one of the big things is a timeline. For example, you start out, one of the pivotal moments is spring 2012 in this narrative. And that's when Antonucci and a previous commander, I think Lynch, started personally going around the command structure to go to the mayor, which state police now say, oh, don't let that happen, mayor, now that we're in charge. But that's an aside. But in 2012, they start going to the mayor going, things are unmanageable here. But we find out at the end of the report that at that exact same time, the department was being certified for the first time, I think, ever, by a national accrediting agency. That's a pretty big piece of information that in a timeline would come through. So that could justify, I don't know, I haven't spoken to Alan Fung, I don't think in 6 or 7 years, but that could justify some suspicion that the guy who's injured on duty because he fell down some stairs with binders is maybe not the best source on your captain or your commander or colonel when you just got 8 major accrediting kudos. I'm just.
All right. I think I get what Justin is saying. When we come back, I'll see if I'm right. Stay with us. All right, there is Alan Fung at his press conference after the state police report came out. Look, I enjoy perspective. You got to come on the radio show and work this thing out because TV doesn't give us enough time. I already turned a show that I thought was doing something else and said, you know what, I need more time with Justin Katz, who's a good policy scribe in this state. You need to get his perspective on all sorts of things. He's done a lot of research, cares very much about the state. Conservative. By the way, is there a bias that you're bringing here in your discussion of the state police report about Alan Fung's police department that is protective of his political career?
No, I mean, anybody listening to me has to adjust for the fact that I think progressive Democrats are going to destroy the state.
Right.
So something that.
By the way,
something that damages helps Gino Raimondo is probably a bad thing in my view. On the other hand, helping Alan Fung may not be the best way to take out Gino Raimondo in the future. So I mean, I certainly have a perspective.
I think there's just so much political calculus that has gone into this thing. Don Botts, the councilman, the other night saying, he should go, he should resign. But I'm not going to give the Democrats on the city council the power if he leaves early and we don't do a special election. So politics over principle. This report is strewn with bad faith, inside baseball, unhealthy environment. I agree it's got a point of view. It's got a point of view from a state police team that went in there and was reportedly horrified about what it is that they were seeing. And is it written in some way to in good stead them because they participated in the rehaul or whatever of it? I think that's an unavoidable yes. So I think your point of view on that is correct. But let's remember how this began. Alan Fung asked for it, he got it, Toyota. You know what I'm saying? And it might have been better for a federal agency to come in and observe the entire thing and give a much drier opinion about what happened? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, yeah. the dryness isn't the thing. I mean, I wanted original documents. I wanted a timeline. I wanted a cast of characters, something so I could read it and understand what's going on. Because right now it looks a lot like the state police have come in and aligned with one of the teams, and that's what concerns me. And there are two other major things that concern me.
But if one of the teams was abused for no good reason, other than being on the wrong team, that conclusion you draw is inevitable.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. Yes, but based on the report, I would want the public to be concerned and assured by some other means that the state police picked the correct team. I mean, for example, you've got the incident with the tech executive who Marco Palumbo sent somebody to his house. Months later, somebody followed him to pick up his child and said, "Hey, Marco Palumbo had you trailed. I just wanted you to know." Who did that? I don't know. The state police report they didn't look into it. They didn't. I mean, that seems to me that could be the guy next to the
That's a fellow member of the police department who did
but who did it? Somebody on team B. On the other team, I would guess.
You know, you make a good point. I have learned that there are hundreds of other pages that could be published with this report. They could spend another $500,000 of taxpayer money giving documentation, literally, for the stuff that they have. And perhaps your discussion here will warrant that. I think the political appetite where do you think the public's political appetite is right now on this entire thing? Frank, it's been a summertime story. Most people have been at the beach. Alan Fung has been belligerent about the political reaction by the government, the Cranston City government, and is trying to mount some kind of safe zone and comeback for his career, I think, in front of good faith service to the constituents. But where do you think the public's appetite is for this?
Well, the longer I write about politics, the more I know that nobody knows anything about what's written about politics. So, I don't think there's much. I don't think appetite. I mean, how much appetite was there to begin with? I mean, how much appetite is there for Brussels sprouts? I mean, nobody pays attention to a lot of this stuff. I'm just concerned that first we're setting up a bad incentive where you bring in somebody outside agency to give a report and boom, you're done. I mean, people are going to learn that lesson, and they're going to do more like the 38 Studios kind of, let's not even talk about this. Somebody will take care of it eventually, and it's the past now. So you're creating that incentive, and I think friction in politics is good. And that's the other major concern. I see all the pieces lining up and then some, because now you have the union, the chief of police, the city council, potentially a mayor, and the state police all lining up with their incentives. And whether they might be pointing in the right direction, at least at first, but when you get that kind of a momentum and coherency within government, that's bad. So even if Mayor Fung is not the best person to finish out this term, some people can believe that, he might be better than the alternative, which is just somebody who's right in that line of the train that could veer off at any time and go right back into it.
Read the report. Thank you. We'll be right back. I hope you got a chance to watch this whole show with Justin and me. Otherwise, it'll be on foxprovidence.com. I get what he's saying, and I don't have any arguments. But Alan Fung, the mayor of Cranston, asked for this report. It falls into the be careful what you ask for. Will somebody never ask for a report of self-assessment because you're going to get a biased reaction? It's an unknown answer to a very good question. You guys have a great weekend. Good night.